Alright guys, somebody saw one of my muskie buckets in the background of a shot and said I should take a look at how-to video on how to make one of these, since it's a do-it-yourself sort of job. So I went over to the store this week with a buddy and picked up a few things that we'll need today. First being 2 5-gallon buckets. You can use pretty much any 5-gallon bucket. I use these leak-tight buckets from Home Depot. They have this sweet food grade rating. I think those muskies can tell these baits come out of a food grade bucket. Along with that, picked up one lid. So the lids are actually sold separately for this type, but it's important that you pick one up. I kind of like these leak tight lids, and the reason is because it's got a flat inner seal on the back side here. So if you take a look at that, it's flat inner seal. It's going to come in handy later. It's black, plain, pretty basic, which is awesome. You also need 1/4 by 20 by 3/4 inch bolts. So I picked up stainless steel. Need a total of 6 of them. So I got a 5-pack and a single. Then I got some stainless steel 1/4 20 lock nuts and a couple of 1/4 by 1/4 by half nylon spacers. The nylon spacers will fit over top of that bolt. And here's a receipt. So you can see price list on everything that's on there. All said and done, everything that I bought here today is $27.40 with tax. You could probably save some money there. If you don't go with food grade buckets, it would be easy to save a few dollars there. If you have a couple buckets laying around, you could do that. Probably don't have to use the nylon spacers. You could just use an extra nut, for instance, something that'll get you some standoff. But what we're gonna try to do is make one of these guys right here. So this is that bait bucket that I've used in the past. If you take a look down in here, really what you do is you use the second bucket as a sacrificial inner liner for this outer bucket, and that keeps your hooks and everything inside. I've seen a version of this where guys just cut slots straight down through the outside edge of the bucket to hang their baits on, but then you always have sharp hook points hanging out the outside if you need to grab this quickly. It's kind of unfortunate, but you put the nylon spacer down in between that inner ring, and then you put the lock nut down on the inner side. So nylon spacer, and then this is the part of the sacrificial bucket, and then you got your bolt sticking through the outside. Cut a couple U-grooves in it, and then you can hang your baits inside. So this is actually pretty awesome because it's about, I don't know, 12, 13 inches tall. So I have some 10-inch Supernatural big bait style crankbaits hanging down in there, and you can tell it looks pretty clean. They still hang fairly vertically. Another thing that's really nice, down in the bottom you can see you got some extra leaders, some spare hooks, that sort of stuff, so you can drop a bunch of those bigger things or bigger tools like your hook cutters or your girth tape or anything like that. So we'll get right to it. Some of the tools that we're going to need today: a saw, a handsaw. That's an option for cutting that strip out of the bucket. You're definitely going to need a drill, some drill bits, a 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, 16th inch drill bit. You're going to need a socket that fits your bolt and an open face wrench that'll fit your nut. Have a Sharpie marker here for making some marks. This is actually my Muskie girth tape wrap around to fish in the boat. That can be helpful for marking out even increments around a round surface. And got a utility knife to cut any burrs, and gonna make quick work of the slots today by just using an angle grinder with a metal cutoff wheel on it. Okay, first thing that we got to do is mark some holes for where we want those bolts to go through. So these buckets are kind of handy because they have these little indentation support marks in them, and if you count off every 4th one, that actually gets you pretty close to the center. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 and make a mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, make a mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, back on the handle on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, gonna make a mark. 1, 2, 3, and 4. gonna make a mark. So now around that inside rim of the bucket where we're gonna put our mounting bolts, we have those spaced out. Alternatively, you can take your girth tape, sort of wrap that around the bucket, divide that number by 6, and mark off where you would want those holes to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is grab my drill and a little pilot bit. We're going to drill around those holes. Okay, next thing we want to do is run through and drill all of these holes with our pilot bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Increase our size here to a 1/4 inch bit. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we want them to sort of hold themselves in place. So we're not going to tighten that down. We're just going to get the nut started on the back side of each one of these holes. That'll hold it in place. Our nuts on the back side of our bolt, which is sticking through the holes that we drilled. So we did that in all 6 locations. Now we'll be able to put the inner liner ring in place and mark off where we want that to go. You really don't want to put it down in there too far. I'm going to grab our tape and mark off where we are in that bucket. About 9.5 inches is what I'm measuring. Push these down so that they all measure about 9.5 inches. Like so. We can take our marker, make our line. Around a bucket like that. We now have to take this bucket, trim it right along that edge, and then she should slide right in the top nice and snug. And we have those nuts on there, so they should stand it off the right amount for the inner edge. Now we just gotta cut that guy off. You can take your knife, once you get those burrs, you can lift those all off. Alright guys, we got our bucket up here, got the holes drilled around it. We got our plastic insert ring that's going to go inside of it. Now we got to get the holes between the bucket and that insert ring lined up. And we actually want to submerge this below the top of the bucket, about what the thickness of this lid is. And if you take a look at what that lid looks like, it's about 1/2 inch from the top of the bucket edge to the bottom of this lid right here, which is where the top edge of our insert is going to ride, so that if our bucket tips over, we don't lose any baits or anything on it. So what we want to do is we want to sort of measure where this bucket hole is at. It looks like it's at about maybe about 1 3/8 down. We're at 1 3/8, and we want 1/2 inch to stick out. So I went to 1 3/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7/8 of an inch is about where I want to drill my hole for that guy. So we're going to drill one hole at a time here. Maybe I'll do 2. We're going to wrap around here, see where the back side of this one's at, get the girth tape on there. 33.5. Man, I wish I could catch a muskie with a 33.5 inch girth. That would be pretty awesome. That's like right at 33.5. So that would be 16.5 plus 1/4. 16 3/4 should put us on the opposite side of the bucket. Put a dot here, just a little one. And again, we'll go 1 3/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually pretty close. All right, we're going to drill 2 more holes. There's that one. Okay, we're going to tip our bucket up on edge here. Going to put a bolt through the outside. Put a bushing spacer through. We'll grab a nut. Put that on. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite end. Put a bolt through. A nut. See, we got our spacer is in there. If I close the lid on this guy, put a lid on the bucket. Okay guys, now we have our ring with the holes drilled in it all the way around, and we have our bucket with its holes drilled in it all the way around. We can take our inserts and put them in, but before we do that, we want to make our bait holders 5.5. Center point of that's about 2 3/4. I want to make these about 3/8 of an inch down from the top edge. I'm going to split this into approximately 3 more subsections. 1 7/8 in between each one. Yep. We got all of our bait holding slots put in the upper edge now. Now we're ready for final assembly. Take a bolt, put it through, get started, put a washer on the inside, or a nylon spacer, I guess I should say. Put that through, put our lock nut in. We're gonna keep doing this process, going around the bucket here. Okay, we got all the spacers in. And we just gotta tighten them down. There we go. Finished product. It's a bucket, holds baits. Hang a maps in there. Close the lid on it, turn it around, open it back up. It's still hanging in the same spot. Guess what I'm gonna use?